Hey, and welcome to Hang On to Your Hat, a fatherhood podcast. And the next part of our special COVID series, Dad's in Lockdown, we have a special guest, Brooke Penrose. Welcome
Hi.
to Hang On to Your Hat.
I see you, Derek.
It's working, the magical tech. Look at us in all our professional studios.
This is just the reality for everyone at the moment, isn't it?
It is.
It's that little pause and then somebody pops up on a screen and we feel like we're actually in conversation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole room full of dudes ready to press change camera. I've got to do it myself. And my COVID brain, this is the baby brain of the 2020.
Oh,
COVID brain says, stop talking while you do that. Thanks so much for agreeing. Pretty late
pleasure.
notice. Something happened. This series is obviously about just connecting with different types of dads. And I've got a dad living in a country town with an only child. I've got a dad who's a PhD who's trying different ways of dealing with parenting, sort of scientifically, I guess, not experimenting, but or a dad who was doing the main parenting while his wife does the bread keeping. What's like having her home up in his face in his normal environment. So a few different types. And when I saw this on the social media, I immediately contacted Brooke. Okay, here it is. This is a Facebook post. I'm putting you out there. I give up on good parenting. No one dead at the end of each day is my standard of care, is now my standard of care. And I think that might have just touched a few people. I read that and went, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Has it been tough?
Yeah. It has been tough. Yeah, I mean, it's that thing that we're living with at the moment through all of this, where all of us are struggling, and everyone has a different level of what they can cope with, and even what they are allowed to complain about. Because, I mean, really, essentially, when you've been locked up in a nice house for 6 months and not really locked up, it's not exactly the same as being in, asylum, immigration detention for 6 years, or locked up in a country that doesn't allow for personal freedom. So we're all, varying degrees, but we also, I think that the thing for humans is we all have our own experience of life, and it's the only one we ever get. And so I think you are allowed still to complain that things today are not quite as nice as they were yesterday.
Yeah, and that's so important, isn't it? That the first instinct I had was, well, you mustn't grumble,
Yeah, it was like that for a while.
And you go, oh yeah, I'm not this and I'm not that. I'm not stuck in hospital. I'm not asylum seeker. I'm not in this position. But in the end, that can be kind of detrimental if you hold that all in and go,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Telling yourself that everything's good, you've got nothing to complain about, yet you've got a build up of angst and anger and, whatever.
Yeah. I don't think that guilt, experience guilt is very, very good for you. I think it's okay. It's fine to have a complaint every now and then, you keep it in perspective, and, have a whinge every now and then to your friends, and, hopefully everyone sort of goes, yeah, you'll be all right. And then the next day, do your best to move on.
Yeah, I've noticed a few damaging complaints where I guess people are just wanting to fixate on something. For instance, a leader or something like that. Yeah. And it's kind of frustrating, putting a lot of pressure on friendships. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of, it's taken Facebook pressure to the next level.
It really has. I mean, we're living in the strange days of social media anyway, but this lockdown has just taken that to an nth degree. That need for people to just polarize their views and argue instantly on anything. I mean, you can't recognize when someone's making a joke by their expression or their language, just by, and people are just instantly because we're all high levels of anxiety and stress and all that sort of stuff, where it's really easy to be triggered. I'm triggered all the time with something, and I have to stop myself and say, actually, I don't think that has anything to do with you at all, Brooke. That was just someone making a comment about themselves, and you have to stop and go, oh yeah, it's okay. People are allowed to have opinions without me feeling like I need to go.
Yeah. And there's one thing with all that on social media, but then we're living in homes with our own children.
Yeah.
Do you have, how many kids have you got?
I've got two. I've got a 5-year-old, recently 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
See, now in the, at least I'm not sort of category, I've got a 12 and a 10. And I think I've said a few times, in fact, maybe yesterday, at least they're sort of old, sentient enough to just say, go and sit on the trampoline for 2 hours. I'm recording, or whatever.
That's the
pros and cons.
Yeah, exactly. I bet there are, and I bet for you, you've got that added thing of, I know what I could get them to do because they're 12, and that they could be doing this educational stuff and this interesting stuff, but still there's that struggle of time and pressure that we're all under at the moment for them. And flip side of that is, for me, I don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be possible anyway with a 5 and a 2-year-old. So
it's so hard. It's so hard. Like, I've got a grade 6 guy, and so his preparation for going to high school is not ideal, is it? No socializing, or only online with the dudes, that he plays a game with. No, not even interacting with any girls of his age, sort of thing. That would have been horrific when I was
So you've got
that
two
age.
boys. You've got 2 boys?
No, one boy, but yeah, I've got a 10-year-old daughter. So unfortunately, she's the only interaction he has with girls, and it's not always pleasant. But look, it's tough having the little ones, and I guess if they're not in school, well, at least the 3-year-old's not in school, you haven't got that sort of having to come to a much bigger agreement sooner with your partner about what happens and where and how much. So with the schooling, it's like, how much do we ride them? There's the schools of thought of just let them run wild, a little bit like your Facebook post. Let's just not die, and everything will be all right.
Yeah, I'm glad we've skipped that. I mean, he's our eldest is preparing to go into school next year, so he's had a kindergarten year which hasn't really existed, and preparing to go off to school. And I think he'll be fine, and I think everyone's going to be in the same situation and the same position socially. But even the most simple things that the kindergarten teacher or we try and do on an educational level, a learning level, which he would probably really love to do. We've got a 2-year-old, and a 2-year-old doesn't allow you to do things like that.
Yeah.
He tears it up. He tears up the world. His latest thing is just I don't even know where he got. It's just this is where I'm like, I am not even bothering to say I'm a good parent anymore. He said to me the other day, after throwing pencils at my head, my 2-year-old said, I'll cut you like this.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
Where is that from? I know he's not.
They hear it and then they've got it.
Where did he hear that from?
I'll cut you.
Oh God!
A friend of mine put up something. A friend of mine put up his son. He was asked to unpack the dishwasher.
Yeah.
And he replies, little, and he replied with, I don't love you. I've never loved you. Like that was full.
Wow.
And it rang true, because my son, he's 12, and to be honest, if he knew what Amnesty International was and he had their number, he'd be onto them.
Wow.
Because the look he gives me when I say, can you unpack the dishwasher? Because that's your job and it's what you're always going to do. It's like a human rights violation.
Yeah, how could you? How could you? The thing with our eldest is he's he's great. He's really creative. He's hugely creative. Like he does lots of drawing. He's just started getting back into drawing actually lately, which has been really cool to see. And he's really creative with it. But his general form of creativity is to get, for instance, in the backyard, he'll get every piece of furniture and boxes and plants and the hose and rocks and chicken food and grass and make this sculptural farmland thing, which you can't touch for a week. He's allowed to, but no one else can go near it. And he'll do the same thing in the house. He'll move every bit of furniture in the lounge room and turn it into his shop or whatever else. And these things are amazing, but he's got a room full of toys there. And if you need to do some, tough parenting and you like consequences for this sort of, us being able to live together as human beings and you acting like a complete monster, and you need to be able to say, I'm going to take this away from you or this away from you. He doesn't care. He doesn't like, the only thing you can threaten him with is, I'm not going to let you watch television. And he knows you're not going to do that because it's the only thing that any of us can do to be calm.
Yes.
He doesn't play computer games. He doesn't care about his toys. So that's the only one, is that threat of like, you're not going to let to watch TV. And then it's like, well, I can't even say that. It's
pretty hard when I hear my wife going, right, that's it. That's a month's ban from playing your computer game. I'm like, my gut just hurts physically. It's like, no, please, because we're stuck in this tiny little house in Preston.
Was it like that for you before?
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard because following through with punishment is the hardest.
Yeah.
If you keep saying, I'm gonna, eventually you have to do it. It's almost like I said to my kids, I said, I'm determined one year to pull the pin on Christmas. When you're naughty, one day I'm going to do, I think it's good parenting. And they're going, what are you on about? I was just kind of, I guess I was torturing them, but I was kind of saying, look, as a good parent, I always threaten this stuff, right? So what I'm going to do one day is follow through. So watch it, because
go ahead. Go ahead.
Just because I need you to know that one day it's going to happen. And Boy Wonder's just finished a month off his game, and during lockdown, that's horrific. Wow. He deserved it. Trust me.
That is it. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, you've got that guilt of like, what kind of parent am I, denying them these things? But at the same time, you're trying to raise people who are, who care and show empathy. And it's harder, of course, with a 5 and a 2-year-old for us, because 5-year-olds don't even have empathy. They don't children don't tend to develop it till sort of 7 or 8. Yeah. They start to actually have true empathy rather than emulated empathy. But at the same time, you're trying to encourage faking it till you make it, pretend that you care about anyone else. So you have to have consequences for the sort of actions that you wouldn't allow. If I came around to your house and started throwing things around the house and calling you names, I'm sure you'd kick me out.
Yeah, that's it. They get away with murder, and you've got that. You sort of got that scenario where, I guess with a 2 and a 5-year-old, you've got that situation where you come and go and they're experiencing their parents separately and together and all this big. But now, that's it's like a 30% of one of their lives is COVID. You know what I mean? Like that, and the most important 30%, which is the last year, maybe not 30%, whatever the maths is, but that's a huge amount, and that's everyone jammed together. So what do you think is going to happen after? Are they going to go, my parents don't love me anymore? They're going out for 2.5 hours at a time. What's happened? Like, I take it you work from home.
For the majority of the time I work from home. I have a recording studio at my house, and I also do art and drawing, commission album covers and drawing, sort of just different drawing projects and design projects. But then I also do work for my dad. He builds science equipment, this environmental testing equipment that goes out to the Antarctic or the Arctic, and it measures wave. So that's the other part of my life.
Sounds exciting to know about that one. It's not in my heavy duty journalist notes, but great to learn stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I do that a couple of days a week. And it just depends what I can fit in between.
That's
work.
That's got to be good for, if anything, not just the dough, but it's got to be good for having that, getting out of the workplace. That's the same.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was a kindergarten teacher for 12 years, and I don't miss doing the job, but I do miss going to work and being away from work. Even working with my dad, which is great. I'm going back to my the house I grew up in to do this work, which is great, with my hands and building and design and soldering and using tools. It's great. I really enjoy it, but it's I miss being in a workplace with work colleagues and having people coming in. So the recording studio is great because when people come in, it's vibrant for me and a really good thing.
Yeah, for those out there that watching that or listening that press play before they read the notes, Brooke is part of a band. Well, I know him from his band Saint Jude, right? So Saint Jude primarily. And I'm a big fan of the band, and I must have contacted you guys to be on my other podcast, which is about music, a while back. I've got all the Saint Jude records, so check that out if you're listening. So you're a musician, you're in a band, singer, songwriter, things like that, guitar, and a few bands and different experiments, but also illustrator. So Captain B Studios, is that the name of your recording studio? Illustrator?
Yeah, I call it a recording and design studio. It's kind of my catch-all sort of term for it.
So it's amazing that the art is amazing. You see it on album covers around the place, not just your own. I saw it. Did you do the Triple R program? Did you do the design for the Triple R program?
A couple of years ago, I did one. They had a sort of horror,
recognizable design. Yeah, sort of horror, sort of dripping stuff.
Yeah, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. It was great.
And the Resi Stomp.
Yeah, and I do the Reservoir Stomp artwork as well. Yeah.
So the point is, as your special skill in today's episode is a creative, being stuck at home, has it given you more interesting creative ideas? Has it tortured you because you're trapped and there's kids running in and out and there's less time, or any new ideas come out of it?
I mean, I have one benefit of having a recording studio is that it's soundproof, so I can actually lock the doors, close all the doors. It's not really soundproof. If they bang on the door, I can hear it, but I can also pretend that I can't hear it. And it's quiet enough that if I just turn the music up a little bit, I can pretend. But then, of course, I sit here and go, oh, they obviously really need me. So it's about 30 seconds of bang, bang, bang. And you're like, no, I'm working. And then guilt and worry. And I rush over to the door and they're trying to come in and
they're just going to escalate. They're going to escalate the level of importance. I've had so many important calls, even like right now, I'm actually in the bedroom. You wouldn't know from the magnificent set, but that door could just open. I could be recording a federal MP and doing their own podcast and just that's what I do. I like produce other people's stuff. Someone would just barge in the door and you'll go with my hand. You can't see it, but look, it's doing this.
Stop!
Fuck off! Right, back up. Don't say anything, and they'll go, okay. After you've answered this question, am I allowed to make jelly? Go, no. You just have to walk away, and then it kicks off, and then they go, "Oh, don't be rude, Dad." And you go, "This is really embarrassing," but that happens. It's not soundproof in my bedroom.
Oh God!
Unlike you, I've got 2 studios, but they're in Collingwood, 6.5 kilometres away.
Can't go to them. Yeah.
But the good news is I've copped I've just got a new contract to record a news podcast, which now news,
Essential work.
Yeah, I'm in the zone. Yeah, I'm cool.
Great.
So I can go there. Once the kids are at school, I'm good. My wife works for the local library, your local library.
Yeah.
And so she's working from home and stuff like that. So it's pretty crazy. So you come up with a new idea. Look, I've got something to show the people. I'm going to try the new tech. Tell me about the Ricks.
Okay, well that was that question you asked before was about if it's been creative for me or not. This sort of feels like lockdown 2. It's the more serious one, but in the first lockdown, Saint Jude were in the process before lockdown of recording our 5th album, and it's a big record. It's just this big high concepts process, big. Really, really fun. We set ourselves all these rules that we're following, and then you follow this small set of rules, and then you can do anything outside of that, but that just gives you a starting point anyway. So lockdown, the first one came in, and we couldn't finish. We were pretty close with it, and I needed to do something musically, so I'd come out into the studio and I'd potter away at that and drive myself bananas and thought, okay, I've got to do something else. I've been meaning to work on my own projects for a while. I've got this folky thing, but I wanted to do this sort of other band. So I did a kind of a pop punk kind of thing, which is the Ricks.
Right.
And then,
sorry, cut you off.
No,
the song that, the song I've got lined up here.
Yeah.
Did you write that?
Yeah. There's 9 tracks on the record and one of them's cover. So I did 8 tracks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that was my first lockdown, was in the studio, 9-track album, start to finish, all done, everything done by me, songs written, all of it. And I was like, yes, great. And second lockdown comes along and I'm like, yeah, I can do this again. And I come out and I sit there with the guitar, and just that weight of it being so long and so long from your friends and so long from and the creativity is just really sapped by this point. So it's more like
a Morrissey album than a pop garage pop.
Yeah, I think it's more like a John Cale, 3 minutes of silence or whatever it was. There's not much happening at the moment. There's some very kind of skeletal ideas which is sitting there, and I generally just sort of have a few beers and stare at my computer.
That's it. Social media. Look at social media and look at the documentary on how bad social media is, and then go back to social media. It's too hard. I'm not watching the Murdoch one, and I'm not watching the social media one.
I'm not watching
until I've finished with my addiction.
I don't need to be told it's evil.
I know. If you don't mind, I'm gonna play the Ricks for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
And, we don't know if the tech's gonna technically work, but I'm gonna try it. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Get a little bit closer now. I can't stand the day when I cannot see your face. Oh yeah. Get a little bit closer now. Not a thing on earth could ever take your place.
Awesome. It's pretty good to I'm going to try and be super clever and leave that on the background. As soon as I saw that, I thought of one of my favourite old songs that I don't know if you'll agree was Paul McCartney's Coming Up, because in the video clip he was everybody in the whole band except Linda, of course.
Oh, well,
so with beards and dressed up and in disguise and stuff like that. I love it. So is that all? That's all you?
Yeah,
that's all you. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's lockdown. So
yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it.
The only thing I didn't do on that was my friend Annie Murray did the text animations. The one that's you've seen, anyone looks up the video clip.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic animator, and she did the closer now that flies out from the sides, and so that was really cool to work with her
No,
on
that's
that.
awesome. And that was lockdown 1.
That was lockdown 1. Yeah.
So look, it's ending soon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorta. There's something. How was it? How was the family feeling on Sunday when we got the news that, school was going back and things were easing off? Was there?
We were just trying to cope with having 2 kids running around. We barely, one of us would like go inside for that. Like, I need to get this thing done, and you actually sort of spend twice as long because you spend, 10 minutes of that supposedly 10-minute job, looking at your phone and, distracting yourself. Like friends of mine made a joke. Someone made the joke the other day that I go to the toilet just for an excuse to use my phone for a break from the family, and then you forget to go to the toilet. And you have to go back 5 minutes later. But yeah, so we kind of just glanced at it over the course of a stressful day, and it was like, okay, they're going back to school. Yep, that's cool. Yep, great. So it's sinking in now that our big one's going to go back to kinder next week, which will be fantastic for him. He's really been busting to go.
He must be craving it. I just remember it was just everything for my boy at that time, just that interaction with all the different kids and stuff like that. Yeah,
it's been a weird one. He changed from childcare to kindergarten and going from 4 to 5, and he went to a new place. So he hadn't even had a chance to make any friends. And just before the first lockdown, he got really sick. It wasn't COVID. He got it was just as COVID was starting to look really serious and things were starting to happen in hospitals and things. He got glandular fever and viral pneumonia on top of each other, and he was in hospital for a few days on a drip, and it was pretty serious. He was very, very sick. So he missed a bunch. He was at kinder for like barely a month. I mean, maybe 3 weeks before he got really sick. And then that started, and then, we kept him out for a little while because he wasn't quite well yet. And then lockdown started, and it was crazy. It was a crazy time.
Yeah, that's the last thing you need to happen at any time.
Yeah.
Like, what a time to have to be even near hospitals and stuff like that.
Yeah. So he has an experience of like getting friends at kindergarten. He doesn't know any of the kids.
Yeah.
They're all just kids that are there sort of thing.
Yeah, not old enough to be sort of tapping into this online thing.
No.
I found, I don't think we're very, let them find out, go and let them cross Bell Street by themselves or whatever. We're not technically like that. I mean, obviously each parent, parent's got a different idea on. There's one going, let them find out. If they choke, then they know not to swallow a piece of brick, and then there's the other one going, no, why don't we just tell them? And so there's that balance. It's never going to be, no one's going to be on this exact same page.
I took my kids to, I shouldn't tell this story on a podcast because this is another example of being a terrible parent. I took my kids to a playground the other day, and it has a really, really high climbing thing, and between these great place. You climb this first building, climb across a few bridges to the second even higher building, and go down this massive slide. And my little one would go across this bridge that was like something out of Indiana Jones. It was, just skinny enough to have 1 foot and a couple of rods sticking up. And he was walking across that. And I was like, I'm scared to death as he's going across the top of this thing. He's well above my head when he's crossing this thing. And he did it over and over and over again. And I thought, this is okay. Well, this is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to do risk taking. This is great. They're having a great time. They're being caring and fun. I'll get this on video for my wife. So I went over and set up the video on the chair, like, so I can show them, it was one of those ones that captures it really fast. So they can going round and around in this thing down, set it up. I look up, he walks to the end of the thing and falls 2 meters off this thing. My 2-year-old.
Hopefully the fall wasn't between frames. You don't get your $2,000 from Channel 9.
No, you got 3 frames of it. Got him going 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
and then
no.
he hits the ground as he
Oh.
flips up to it completely. Yeah. So of course, the camera goes flying out. I go,
Destroyed the phone first and then went to look after the kid.
he was totally fine. It was stressful, and he, kids at that age, they bounce. But it was that thing where, I'm trying to not be a helicopter parent, and I'm trying to give him opportunities to hurt himself and learn from those mistakes. I think I'm generally pretty good with that. They climb trees, and we've got chickens, and I let them play, barefoot and climb and dig and jump and all those sorts of things, and play with tools and use hammers. And it's always that one where you just take your eye off for a minute to dock this fun experience, and that's when they fall. So I'll have that video on my phone for a while. Every now and then I'll watch it and watch a 2-year-old falling 2
Just remind
meters.
yourself.
Remind myself.
Well, I reckon I'm disclaimer. I reckon I'm more in the legal department, where I was like, all right, so over years of forcing myself not to try and not helicopter, when all my instincts want me to go, just don't do it, because then that 1 in 1,000 chance of breaking your neck won't happen, right? It's sounds like Homer Simpson, doesn't it?
Yeah.
if it's too hard to do, it's not worth doing. So I've gone, so I think now I throw out a disclaimer, go, you could badly hurt yourself doing that, so that I'm not that parent going, I can't believe I just let him do that. I was like, well, I disclaimed, I warned him. You were warned.
That's good.
But
I do that
just
with
as
the
evil.
elder one, but
Yeah.
with the 2-year-old, I can't believe it's only. I mean, it's just people who have 20-year-olds probably say the same things, but I can't believe it's only 2 years ago that he was born. I mean, he's such a complete little being now. And a quarter of that's now been spent locked up in a room with
It's a big amount.
family. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I
wonder how it'd be interesting to see what comes next. What next year is going to look like to the kids from their perspective.
Yeah,
I know at 2 and 5, they're not necessarily going to, they're probably just going to go, cool, everyone's home. It's no problem. But not to get that full, let me make it clear. Like if I'm at work and they're at school or kinder or whatever, then they're not constantly being rejected by me.
Yeah.
But if I'm here in the corner of this room and they walk in and I'm going, get out. And then they go into the other room and my wife goes, get out.
Oh God. Yeah.
We've got a backyard though. I mean, one of the final benefits of having the crappiest house that hasn't had a townhouse built on the back of it is,
Oh, thank goodness.
it's raw. The fence is coming down and it's a jungle and there's an old trampoline that no one should get on. So like your chickens, it's a bit of real world that they don't, you don't know how lucky you are.
We're so fortunate to have the backyard that we've got. I mean, that's one of the reasons we ended up where we did. So space to have my studio, place to have veggies and space for the kids. And so we've got all sorts of little zones, and we just got a trampoline the other day, which was really needed. And we've been exploring recently on our bikes all of the parks and waterways and stuff around with the kids, which has been really, really good. So we're very, very fortunate. I don't imagine how difficult it would be to have been stuck with these kids in an apartment.
Yeah.
No backyard and sharing.
6 months ago, my kids, were sort of almost lobbying to go and live in an apartment.
Really?
Yeah, they just got it in their heads. They've been watching Friends. I know.
Wow.
But I don't know how or what. But suddenly they start watching Friends.
You could just put
and we're sitting there cringing going, oh, should they be watching this? Because they're friends. All they talk about is sex.
Oh,
it's like, all right. Well, at least I don't have to tell them stuff.
It's pretty tame. I think
it is definitely tame. But they really want to live in an apartment, and they don't now. I tell you what, things have changed now that we've been locked in. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think the big thing for my kids is that they don't necessarily need space. They need stimulation away from us. visiting grandparents or being at kinder or any of those sorts of things. We've been fortunate not to need space in the outside world. They just need something else.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the bottom line, isn't it? Something else, and we'll just take every bit we can within the rules. And and
I mean, we're all busting for that, aren't we? Even adults. Like, I normally play Dungeons and Dragons with some friends, some people I'm in bands with, and
hello.
I
sorry, that's a trigger for me. We had early on in our last season, we had Scott from Tripod as a guest.
Yeah,
and I said that he had an unusual tattoo, which is like a multi-sided dice, or some weird dodecahedron or whatever on his arm. And I said, "What's that?" He's like, "Oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons with my kids, and then now the neighbours' kids come and play, and they're and it sort of talked about how parenting, an analog activity sort of thing, and everyone goes, "Thanks for doing this with the kids," and he's like, he's just riding his own obsession. It's like me. Yeah. I throw kids' birthday parties where they record a podcast in my studio. Oh, wow. Well, not for my kids, that is, but because that's just my obsession. I'm always keen to do it. Yeah. And so anytime anyone says it, I go, "Oh yeah, I'm done Dungeons curious." I reckon I'd be the type to get into it, but it's like a secret society.
It's great fun, but one of the best experiences. Best things of the experience for me, and is the friends I do it with. We're all bandmates, and we get together and usually do it in a studio here because it's a big space and it's you need to do it somewhere, and you booze on and talk, and we all do silly voices, and that's kind of the thing for us. It's very performative. It's not about numbers and dice and things. It's more about being and having that performance experience and drinking beer and carrying on, and not doing it on Zoom. It is just not the same experience.
Right, okay.
So like that, and in terms of like wanting different stimulation, as we all do, I just want my friends around to have that, to be with them and do those things together, as in as much as I'm busting to play music again, be with my friends in that way. It's just, we just need our people around us again, don't we?
Definitely. And I think the Zoom thing, it's interesting with the kids, but I'll get to that. But the Zoom thing's interesting because what is the difference? And I realize it's probably shame, because when you're doing a Zoom call, like when I'm going off, if I'm, I've had a few beers or whatever, and I'm, wanting to go on a full rant, I don't know whether someone's kid's just standing there watching in the door. I'm not in a private place or someone's rumpus room, or playing Dungeons and Dragons, like what if you got caught? So that freedom to just express yourself with your peeps where you normally do that. And maybe the kids are a bit like that as well. I'm really I know your kids aren't at that age, but my kids have been doing Tally Chat, WebEx, and all this kind of stuff for their school, but they haven't really got the courage to start up a conversation. It's got to be formal. You got to say, "Hey, Sharon, do you want to get on a WebEx?" It's not just walking up to someone in the schoolyard. So they're missing out on the inadvertent, relaxed conversations. Even the hi. Yeah. It's a big thing. If you say hi for them now, for a 12-year-old, that's sending an email that says hi. That's a thing. That's
going and standing next to another 12-year-old and looking at what they're doing is almost like making best friends with someone, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Over and look, they've got some cards or something, and you're like, "Oh yeah. Oh, I've got the one," and it's like, "Oh, okay. Well, we're best friends for the rest of the world."
You've applied to like them on Facebook, and that's the equivalent of ticking a couple of boxes and filling in an application form.
Well, it's a weird transition now, because I suppose what these kids are learning from this experience, they might not use next year or the year after, or maybe this is the new reality. I think you and I are of similar generation. I think we're that between X and Y sort of generation that kind of crossed between being computer illiterate and being highly literate. And so we're pretty good with computers. You know, you can figure it out pretty quickly, but you didn't live with them your entire life. So you do have an experience of having, you know, growing up with vinyl or growing up with CDs or tapes or whatever, or, you know, having a remote control that had to plug in on a long cable, stuff like that, you know, or the clicker, things like that, where that transition period between the past and the future, I think we're probably
having the good things and knowing they're the good things.
Yeah,
because you know what it's like to not have the good things.
But I wonder and I wonder if that's what it's like for these kids. Is they'll for the generation that's here now, where they're using the internet, having to learn a new form of language, a new form of introduction, where you do have to type, "May I start a conversation with you?" And that's a new language that they need to learn to be able to say, "Hey, you know, can I hang on?" And yet they're still doing "Hey" in the playground, so they have that dual language.
Yeah,
and I think I wonder if kids in 20 years' time just won't hang out on the playground the way that
be interesting
that kids do now,
because they're more not polarized. What's the word? They're more just they're in smaller groups. The people, like, I guess when I was a kid, I was probably that satellite kind of guy. You know, you kind of were technically a member of three groups. The Tuffy Pot Smokers from Hillsville. I was definitely hanging out with them. They were grouse. That was hilarious. I loved Trank Zappa, and it was like amazing what I learned from those guys. But then, this is high school, by the way, and then there was not primary school, and then of course there was the girls, you know, and the kind of wild boys going to gigs and stuff.
Yeah,
like I was really into that. So I was definitely being a member of different groups.
Yeah,
that's going to be tough for people like me that sort of swung around and hung out with lots of different groups, because it just wasn't enough to be, you know, it was like mods and rockers and, you know, skins and sharps, like not enough for me to be in one thing. But I wonder if the playground allows that bouncing around. You can just wander over, because like the jocks are getting a bit boring, and hang out with the computer nerds or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to define yourself that greatly. Some people really do, though, don't they? They define themselves by a pop culture choice, or something like, you know, someone who's just really into Harry Potter, and that is just such a hugely defining part of everything that they do. You see that on Instagram. I mean, maybe that's deceptive as well. Maybe on Instagram they look that's a mask that they wear, and they're able to be this Potterhead kind of person, and that's everything to do with their life. But in actual fact, they also, you know, have other parts of their life.
Yeah, and it's an identity, you know. I was a Pink Floyd guy. I was the Pink Floyd guy, you know, had the badges and all that. And a mate said to me one time, "Oh, you're lucky." I said, "Why?" He goes, "You've got a thing." I said, "What do you mean?" And I was put off by it, and I think that I took those off. That I was like, "That's it. I'm not a Pink Floyd guy. I still enjoy the music, but it was like, don't call me a Pink Floyd guy." And he said, "You've got a thing, you know." And I had a bunch of Madness and Scar badges as well, because I was into that.
Yeah.
And I gave them. I said, "There you go. Put them on. You can have that. Have a thing if you want a thing."
Yeah,
be a rude boy.
Sound like me, a real contrarian. Don't tell me what I am. As soon as you tell me what I am, I don't want to be it anymore.
Exactly. So I think that happens with the gaming, with in the back to my world. I think you know, my son is like one of the Fortnite kids who's really good at it, and there's probably a group of them. So it's quite exclusive, because you need to put in a lot of hours. You can't just get a badge. You've got to become good at a game.
That's different, isn't it?
Mm.
It's like becoming a pothead, isn't it? Like, you have to put in a lot of time to become a real pothead.
It takes a bit of time.
You know, we were probably more like, you know, you dip in and every now and then, and you listen to some Pink Floyd, but you also listen to a bit of Madness, you know.
That's it, To be the pothead, you've gone I mean, it's like everyone. You've gone and taken that maybe that side of things and just gone. That's it. That's good enough for me. I'm going with that one.
It's like the kid who was, I don't know if you had someone like this at school, like, you know, who was into tennis or skiing or something. You know, there was plenty of kids on the football team, but they could be on the football team and also, you know, other things. Whereas it seemed like, you know, the kid who was into that sort of sport, that swimming or whatever, that seemed to dominate so much of their life.
Yeah, the ones that had that possible dream of, you know, going on to proper Olympics or whatever. Gymnastics, I think, messes with a lot of kids. You know, because all there is that potential for greatness when you're 16, and then you can just fuck off. You know, go to a nightclub or whatever because it's over now. I'm sorry. There's no 25-year-old gymnast. Oh, maybe there is. Apologies. Oh, I forgot. I was on the radio. But you know, as long as we're getting on and having laughs and constantly remembering that you know, to have some fun at home. Like, I think everyone's got any top tips for anyone, like any little things you've done you thought, I reckon that's clever how we've done that. You know, any little tips, any little games?
Oh,
bit of pressure there, sorry.
I don't know. I think all of my good ideas are just have been proven to be ineffective by this point. I mean, the best thing we did recently is having two small kids and neither of them being able to ride a bike yet. The eldest, we got him a bike for his birthday, but he bumped his hand against the wall on the second or third time he had to go on it, and he's just sworn off it at the moment. And we're not going to push it. Yeah. But we hired an electric motor pedal assist bike that can fit both of them on the back.
Oh, nice. Cargo.
And yeah, I don't know what the brand is. I can't speak them because I can't remember. But they and that's been fantastic. So I bundle them on there every day, and I couldn't get them on yesterday, which is one of the reasons I had such a bad day. Bundle them on there, strap them in, helmets on, and go. And then it's like, if you ride the right directions, you can time it out so that you're like, no, we're not going to that playground. We're going to the one that's, you know, and you can get your like 12 Ks of riding around, you know, different, obviously within the 5 Ks, but, you know, all around. You stop here and it's a bit safe because it's contained and you've got a bit of food in the back. And so that was something we did that has been absolutely fantastic. Just being able to sort of control them and contain them. And it's been great for me because I've actually been riding a lot lately, you know, doing, you know, 10 Ks a day on the bike. And it's like I said, it's pedal assist, so it's probably, you know, only half that, but that's more than I was doing a month ago.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of pedal assist bikes. I have one.
Yeah,
I have a normal bike and a pedal assist bike, which is currently not working, so it's normal. It's normal all the way. But I love it. I've been ranting about them for years. It's catching on. But the idea of putting them both on and it sort of seems like a symbol for that. Let's just make this possible rather than try and make it perfect. Like, let's go for a family ride. My wife's been saying that since my kids were an age, even since the time my daughter didn't even ride a bike.
Yeah.
Let's go for a family ride. I said, but let's just look at what that means. That means putting the rack on the thing, taking them to somewhere because you don't want to ride from here, right? And basically me walking my bike alongside our daughter who then eventually cracks it and doesn't ride the bike. And it's just going to be a big screaming match. And so you ride ahead with Tom and then you come back going, what's going on? Where are you? And it's just going to go to hell. But those cargo bikes, now I ended up putting a makeshift kind of one, like basically a cushion on a pack rack. And I put my daughter on that. And when my son could ride, we had the freedom to go on the paths and it just opened everything up. She enjoyed riding because she wasn't doing anything, right? But she also got to go along the path and we all got to go along and it changed everything. And I looked at those things that you got and went, I really want one. but I only had one kid to put on it, so we got through that. But it's huge. It really gives it.
It's been amazing. It's like going. You go to one of those places like the zoo where you're kind of okay with the kids. Like I can take 2 of them to the zoo or the museum, places like that where they're stimulated and it's interesting. And one of them might run off, but you're probably all right. Like, whereas if you go, there are some places that you go to the city or like, you shopping in one of those places where like they run off and you're like, fuck, this is bad. Or you lose one of them or they lose interest or you've got to do something. Or like,
Yeah.
And it's like that, you can chuck them on the bike and it's okay, until the little one starts. His sign that he's falling asleep is he starts headbutting his brother with his helmet, cracking the helmets together.
So you actually hear the brother complaining.
Stop. Oh yeah, I can hear that. I hear him stop, and he does his best to stop it. But then he's also 5, and eventually he just cracks his head back, and then it's all over, and then it's all bad. So yeah,
you need one of those shields they put up in cafes now to a bit of perspex between them.
I've been thinking about adding some sort of strap to the back of his helmet, so when it's like you tie his head back or something,
Where there's a will, there's a way. It reminds me of when I used to ride a Vespa around with my wife on the back, all around Tassie. Just every time I put the brakes on, crack. It's like, she never used to drive a car at the time. So she just sat there comfortably, not caring. Whereas people that have driven, when they're a passenger on a motorbike, they're into it. Like their heads, their neck's firm and they're into the fear of everything. But she was just like sitting there and then clonk. But yeah, look, I love the idea of chucking them both on the pedal assist. So
yeah, it's been great. So that would be something I'd recommend.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's been expensive, but worth it.
Yeah, we found that bike riding has been a huge part of getting through this. The distance, and we even got to the point where I think it's fast-tracked permissions for the 12-year-old. So he now just gets on and goes off for a ride, and he sees his friend somewhere and gets a slushie or whatever. So proper high school stuff. So we sit here pretending we're not shitting ourselves.
Yeah.
When he comes home, he's like, "Boy, my boy, you're home."
My wife was telling me about a friend of hers who let their child go to the shops at like 5 or 6 or something.
Wow.
Give them money and let them go for a walk around the block, go to the shops, and it was one of those rite of passage things, that you do, and no judgment on them. I mean, I'm sure they felt like that their child was ready and they were ready, but I don't know if I'm ready for that.
It's horrifying.
5.
No, I couldn't do it. Like my daughter, she hasn't gone by herself and she's 10.
Yeah,
but they go together, and that's sort of reasonably safe. But yeah, it is. It's frightening. It's a different world and all that sort of stuff. It's a hard decision to make. Off your nick.
I used to do it. I remember when we grew up, not country, but I don't know if you know Panton Hill. It's kind of out past Eltham. Well. Yeah. So it's kind of micro country, and we'd you get your $2 and you'd walk the 2 Ks to the shop or whatever, how many Ks it was. It was quite a few actually. And then it would take you an hour. So it must have been more than that. It shows how long ago it was. You'd get your $2 worth of mixed lollies, and then you'd walk back, and it was along the side of the road and some bits of through the bush and stuff. But I don't remember what age I was, but I don't know if I'd be comfortable with my kids doing that.
Look, it's got to be a balance between letting them do something because you feel you should because you did it. But I used to go, and when I was 7, I used to go to the milk bar by myself, cross a major road, and buy durries for my parents. Right? They go, off you go, get me 2 packets of Kent. Right? That was pretty heavy. Like, I'm not going to go, well, I did it, so it's probably all right and there's nothing wrong with me. There is something wrong with me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying not to force myself to let them do stuff that I don't feel comfortable with just because other people do or whatever, or I think it's probably the right thing. But either way, COVID has changed everything. We'll see what it's like out there for them. That's for sure. I better wrap it up. I've got your top tip, the bike thing, and that is awesome.
Yep. And just drink a lot.
Drink a lot. Yeah, I know. I made a vow at the studies. I said, right, I'm going to have to drink more.
Oh, God.
Like I wasn't drinking anywhere near enough.
Nowhere near enough. No.
I'm not going to be able to get my rock podcast up and running without at least 7 times as much grog in me.
I am going to be so seasoned when we go out there. Go out there again when gigs start. It'll be like, I can drink with the best of them.
What can you imagine the Croxton full of people? And let's say King Gizzard's playing or something, and they're all just standing there, 8 beers in, going, I'm not feeling it. Give me another one. Let's keep trying.
I think it's going to be. I think that the
so
reaction
just sitting still.
The reaction from some people is not to drink, and from others is drink to excess because it somehow dulls the pain. And I think we're all going to go out, and you'll be like, every second person will be one drink and they're on their ear, and the other people will be like, this is not touching the sides at all. And I'm so excited to be outside. So pubs are going to be funny for the next few months once they.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a cack. It's going to be a cack, and everyone will be just so much more grateful to be there.
Oh yeah, I just can't.
There won't be any like, I don't want to go to that gig. It was like, yeah, I'm going to every gig. I'm saying it now. I'm going to every gig. Every single gig.
Please, everybody go to every gig. Everybody who's.
I'm going the full Mary.
Full Mary?
Mary who's at every gig.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah. I know Mary. Yeah,
Carby Warby, everybody. I'm going down that road.
No, you've got to. I think if any of your friends are in gigs or have art shows coming up or have, a community theatre production of Oliver or any of those things, just go to it because it's an excuse to leave the house, and they've desperately been wanting to do this for you for so long. So that's, I think that'll be really important for us all.
Yep.
As an arts community, I think Melbourne is really, busting to perform for each other again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And get on some online things. I think the Resi, where's my notes? I think you did the poster for it.
Yeah, the Reservoir they've zigged or zagged when they needed to, and it's now an online event, which is going to be great. It's a whole thing that they've said that that it's not just going to be a gig on Instagram or something, which is the best most people have been able to do, which is fantastic. But they're trying to do something different and new, and I think that what I've seen so far, it's looking great. Real
fantastic.
Get your tickets.
I booked up yesterday to a conference.
Oh wow.
A community radio conference or something like that, right? Regional community radio conference. Paid the money, and I'm stoked because I'm not necessarily up for forcing myself to hang with people and start conversations. So I'm happy to sit in my room and quietly just watch it, and all walking between events and all. I don't know, and I can also wag the shit out of it if I find it boring, but I won't.
That's a weird thing, isn't it? Like I'm a person who can get up on stage and perform for anyone, and I years of teaching and everything. I don't find public speaking in any way stressful, but if I go to a conference or a class or any of those things, I don't talk to a single person. I just won't. I can't do it. I find that social anxiety. That's in fact one of the Rick songs. The next single that's just coming out now is about social anxiety and just not being able to talk to people. Going to gigs and sort of having to run away halfway through and things like that. It's strange. It's such a strange thing. It's just so many compartmentalizing that you can do in your own head.
Yeah, I mean, if you're preparing for a performance, you assume you've rehearsed it and you've got an idea what you're going to do, and then someone just walking up saying, "Oh, they're nice shoes." This is like, boom! Suddenly you got what? how do I deal with that? Go away.
It's just weird because I could get, if someone said, "Can you get up on stage and do a speech about this, whatever random thing?" I'd be like, "All right, I'll probably be shit, but I'll talk some shit and say a few dumb jokes, and I won't be stressed about it in any way, even though I know it'll probably be terrible." Whereas if you said, "Walk into the back there and go up to a random person and have a conversation," I would have such anxiety.
It's pretty frightening.
They talk to me, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But starting it, it's just, horrific.
You had to go to nightclubs in the 80s. there was no Tinder for us. You just had to walk up to someone at some stage. So either that or you were such a good dancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, I better wrap this up.
All right.
Thanks a million for giving us a rundown on what it's like to be a muso and an artist working from home during COVID with the little ones. I hope that helps some dads out there to get an idea what we're all going through, and we'll come out with our ideas and get yourself a cargo e-bike or whatever you'll call them. Put the kids on and get them out. No excuses.
And don't stress if you haven't done anything creative, because it's really difficult to be creative. I'm finding it hard not to burst into tears most of the time.
Yeah, I found the same. I thought, I'm going to do so many projects. I was like, I'm just going to survive.
Yeah, just get through it.
Back to that. Get through each day.
Yeah, we're only going to be a year older.
No one dead.
No one dead. Yeah.
Super duper. All right. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
All right. Ciao.